I actually collapsed at work once because
Mm,
I wasn't, I was working so much, I was so stressed. It really did affect my health. I collapsed at work, I was in hospital for a period of time. So I
mm.
really saw the impact that it had on my physical health. And I knew from then I had to make a change.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Listen In podcast. My name's Aradna.
My name is Anya.
And my name's Boomy.
Let's get into it.
So today we'll be talking about work-life balance. So what work-life balance means to us, and if we do have a good work-life balance, have we always had that sort of work-life balance, and what kind of gets in the way, as well as tips. So what helps us to have and maintain a good work-life balance now? You definitely want to listen into this one.
Okay, so what does work-life balance mean to you? For me, what does work-life balance mean to you?
It just means my well-being, being less stressed from day to day to function in all the different aspects of my life, if that makes sense. Yeah, so for me, that's exactly what it means, that my well-being and being able to function in different aspects of my life without feeling stress to do so. Simply put.
And do you feel like you have a good work-life balance?
Do you want the truth or do you want the lie?
I want the truth.
No, I don't.
No.
I could give you a suggestion then, what I think will make a good work-life balance for me. Yeah, just 3 or 4 days of weekend, 2 or 3 days of work. And I mean, literally, that should be a national thing, not just me working part-time. But actually, things need to be reversed. Because all work and no play makes me a very, very dull girl.
Yeah, I completely agree. What about you, Rabna? What does work-life balance mean to you?
I think for me, I didn't really know what it meant for a really long time. And I think I didn't even hear the phrase until actually, to be fair, somebody did say that to me years ago, but it didn't really stick. But I think for me now, work-life balance means having a life where my work doesn't spill into my personal life and take up my personal time and use up time that I could be using for other things that are important to me, like my family, my friends, my own interest developments. I think that's what it means to me now.
And do you think you have a good work-life balance at the moment?
I have had horrible work-life balance, horrible, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It was so bad, all my friends used to comment on it, but and family. But now I've started working really hard to redress the balance, and really be more conscious of it. And I feel like I'm now starting to, I think because I'm more conscious of it and I'm putting stuff in place, it's helping me to have a better work-life balance.
That's interesting. I mean, I can see that you've definitely improved in that area. Definitely.
Honestly.
I can definitely see, but we'll talk about that in a bit. I think for me, work-life balance means something very similar. So being able to go to work and give your time whilst you're at work, but then being able to switch off at 5 o'clock or whenever the finish time is, and then just kind of be able to do other things and focus my attention towards other things. So whether it's a hobby, or whether it's time with family, whether it's sorting out things around the house, just kind of having more of the balance. so that
Yeah.
my life is not consumed with work. And yeah, I haven't always been
Yeah.
good at that either, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
think that's a good word, what you just said about your life being consumed with work. I think that's a key word, because it can be like it just swallows everything, you know.
It's into
It
your
can.
waking thoughts, isn't it? Literally, it's like it's something you constantly think about. And like you guys, I didn't even know that was a term until probably when I started my first speech and language therapy job, so the job I'm in now. And I really struggled when I started to work, because it was just, you know, like you come in, you want to make a good impression and you want to do all the bits. And I think that's okay sometimes when you start off a new job, that you may have to take a bit of an extra time to learn new things, and that's okay. But it's actually when you don't know when that stops and it continues. And yeah, like there's sometimes even till now that I might remember something, oh, I should have done at work. And actually, because in those days I would have probably like gone and put on my laptop and tried to do it. But now I'm like, no, wait. And I think it's part of that growth, isn't it? That you just begin to be a bit more responsible for your own health. And you begin about things to help yourself, really. So yeah, I did struggle with work-life balance for, probably still do in comparison to some of my colleagues and friends that I know. Yeah, but yeah, I was going somewhere with that and then I lost it.
no, I followed you. So are you saying that you would regularly do things at the weekend just to kind of catch up? If it popped up in your mind, you would do it there and then?
In terms of work, in those days, yes, literally. And I think when at my job, we all started to, we moved from our previous base to where we're now. And so remote working was encouraged. And so we got a laptop, which was kind of the beginning of the end for me in those days. Because, yeah, literally, I'll be sitting at my laptop till 7 o'clock in the evening sometimes. And I remember actually it was my husband, as cliche as this sounds, and I don't think he has a great work-life balance, if anybody asked me, but I remember he made a comment. He said, you do realize that, so there's an adage in Yoruba, so my home tongue, and it's better said in that language, but I'll translate it as much as possible to English, that the length of work life is longer than the length of human life. So literally that there would always be work. And he said, like, so he said that adage in Yoruba, and then he said in English, he said, there would always be work. That's why it's called work. So, and I think that kind of, you hear about prioritizing work, but that kind of did the switch for me in terms of actually, what can I get done within the specific hours I've been given?
Yeah, I do feel so. In one of my office bases, one of our clinics, it closes at 5 really on the days that I'm there, and someone has to lock up. So I can't remember how to do the lockup. So I'm relying on whoever else is there to do the locking up for me. So when 5 comes, if I haven't finished my work, I'm panicking because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to be left alone in this building because I wouldn't know what to do. And, you know, so that's more of an incentive for me to leave on time. I feel like I have to leave because I'm going to get locked in and I wouldn't know what to do. So that's helped. But I think since working from home, there's no one that's going to lock me in anywhere. I have found it just easier just to keep working. You're just there and you're just thinking, yep, I'll just keep going and then I'll do what I need to do. It's harder. And I also found it harder to take breaks. I think because my laptop is on and we've got this kind of chat thing as well where colleagues might message me about something and it's like an instant chat. So because they've messaged me, I feel like I have to respond instantly. Or if they've emailed me, I feel like I have to respond instantly. So then I find that, I mean, I'm trying to take breaks. And when I take my breaks, I'm taking my work phone with me just in case a message comes through that I need to respond. So it's not really a break. Do you know what I mean? I think it is important to have breaks throughout the day as well. Just to kind of give your mind that breathing space to kind of reset and return back to work. To just do other things. when I've actually taken breaks, I've done things like reading a book that I've got, which has been really nice. So certain things are, are useful.
Mm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What about you, Arabna?
Well, I haven't been working from home. I've been going in. And I think I've said this to Anya before, but in my previous jobs before speech therapy, I did a lot of work, like unpaid overtime at home.
Yeah.
So I think I got to a place where I actually now can't really work at home anymore. Unless there's a specific reason, then I can get that energy to do it. But now it's just too much. I think I've sort of like used up my lives in terms of working from home, especially and doing overtime, definitely doing overtime at home that I'm not being paid for. I've kind of gone past that stage now. I rarely ever do it unless there's a really good reason.
What do you
but
think
most of the time,
changed?
I think I just got tired of it. I did it for so
Yeah.
long. I can't even tell you the years. Like what we
Yeah.
were saying earlier about when you first started. So I think when you do first start, generally speaking, most people do work longer hours just because, and I'm not endorsing that. I think that no one should start working any extra hours,
Yeah.
work in the time that they give you. But I think in the beginning, because you're new to it, you are slower at your job
Yeah.
because you're more conscious of things, you're more nervous. You want to make sure that things are right. And also people in our role anyway, a lot of times when you first start, people are checking your work or you're being supervised more. So things
Yeah.
are going to take longer, but
Plus
you still have the same deadlines.
Exactly, and plus, I was just going to say, plus you're new to the role, so things do take longer. You're learning things, and it does take a bit longer to process things and plan
Yeah.
things, planning for
Yeah.
sessions. All of that takes a lot longer. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah. But I found that, so yeah, when I first started, I did so much overtime. And yeah, now I think about it and I'm like, what was I doing in that? Why was this taking me so long? Why was I spending so much time? But I guess for me, it was just part of the process. And I think as I grew in my profession and started sort of valuing my time more,
Yeah.
I started sort of putting things in place to have a better balance and also learning from other people, because Bumi talked about it earlier about, compared to her colleagues, maybe taking a bit longer or whatever. But that used to happen to me as well. I used to sit down and think, how are people getting all these reports done or all of these things
Yeah.
done?
I
And
used to
it's
think the
taken me
same.
forever. And then I started
Yeah.
noticing that people are doing things. So some people use templates to make things quicker for themselves, or they use certain things that they've put in place that makes life easier for them. So
Yeah.
I just started kind of looking at what other people are doing and copying that as well. But I know I'm jumping, but I really like that Yoruba proverb, because it's so true. Like there's always going to be work. There's always going to be work to do. It's about prioritizing things, doing what you can in the time. And part of it is that if you can't do it in the time that you've been given, then, and you're being honest about it, you're not spending your time on YouTube instead of doing your work or whatever, then that's an indication that maybe you're being given too much work, or maybe they need to balance it out sometimes. So
but how easy is that? Because I completely agree, and I was exactly the same. When I got my first job, I was working crazy hours, working so late, and I mean, as you guys know, I had quite a difficult manager at the time who was very much micromanaging me. So it was on my case all the time. So I felt like an added pressure of I need to get this work done. Because if I don't, it's going to look even worse for me.
Yeah.
So I felt like there was that additional pressure. I think how easy is it to start out as a newly qualified professional, and know that it's okay to say, actually, this is all I can do within the hours that I have. Because I think, like we said before in other episodes, when you graduate, particularly in speech therapy, when you graduate, you have a certain period, like probation period, which they call, where you have to work through certain competencies and show that you are competent to do certain things. And then the manager has to sign that off. You have to present evidence. The manager signs it off, and you've kind of passed that period. And I think that in itself can bring a bit of a pressure. So how easy is it to say, when you're going through something like that, this is all I can do, and just leave it?
It's not easy at all. And I think this is also where some of our backgrounds and cultures influence this as well. Because you don't, I mean, obviously I'm making a massive generalization here, but I think generally speaking, in a lot of our cultures, you listen to authority. Do you know what I mean? You respect authority. So your manager is the authority, the teacher, whatever. So even if they're asking you to do things that are unmanageable or whatever, you'll find some way of doing it because that's what you're used to doing, or that's what you're used to accepting. So it's really hard to come away from that and see that things need to be managed in a different way for you to be able to have a good work-life balance. Otherwise, you're just going to be consumed with working all the time, and nobody else is doing that. Or other people have found other ways that has been accepted for them for whatever reason, because maybe they're from that culture, the main culture, the dominant culture, so they know how to word things in a certain way that will kind of get people to support them. And you know, like you said, Anya, if you've got a pressure of a certain type of manager that you know, might be discriminating against you, or might have sort of preconceptions of you know, a black woman or someone from an ethnic minority, it makes it really hard. But I think that it is possible within your, like, I don't know about externally. I feel like externally that's sort of the manager and the system's role to help you with that. But I think for me, if I look back at myself, I think internally I should have done what I'm doing now a long time ago and started putting boundaries down on work and what I honestly could do and what I honestly couldn't do. I don't think I did that.
But as with everything in life, I think it's just it's a learning curve, isn't it? You may like, it may have taken us a bit longer to get there, but we're getting there, if that makes sense. And obviously, I think one of the good things about our podcast is the fact that we just don't talk and just rant, so to say. We also leave like really good tips for other people. So there might be someone coming who started a new job that actually might be better for them to know that from the word go, if you are able to establish those boundaries, it's much better than actually starting off a different way. And then it will take you a whole lot longer to actually then set those boundaries, or for other people to comply with those boundaries because they were not there from the word go, if that makes sense. I think that's a really good point around now.
I feel like for me with the boundaries, sorry, excuse me, you know, thinking about now what I've done, it's little things that I've done now. Like I decided to put alarms on my phone. So I've put an alarm for different things in my day. So for work, I've put an alarm on when I should be leaving work. So at that time, my alarm on my phone goes off and it says you should be leaving work now. So that helps me to be like, oh, okay, like whatever I'm doing, I need to wrap it up and go. And that's really helped me. Even if I stay 10 minutes longer or 15 minutes longer, at least I've like signaled to myself that I need to get going. Another thing that I tried, which didn't work very well, was to be like, okay, if I'm finishing at 5, I'm going to start packing up at 1:45. Not my bag, but like sending off that last email, putting things in the drawer, like, you know, those sort of things. But yeah, I do think it's important to have those boundaries, because sometimes you know, it's life. Sometimes the boundaries will have to be broken because there's something very important. You know, there might be a life or death situation that you have to manage, and you can't be like, sorry, I finish at 5. Like, no. But at least if you have those boundaries, then you know, okay, in this situation, I will do this. In other situations, I need to really assess it and see if I need to be doing this work at 8 o'clock at night. Does it really need to be done at this time? Am I really concentrating at this time doing this piece of work? Or could I have organized my life in a different way to make sure that didn't happen? But it's hard, especially if you don't have support. If you don't have a supportive team, it's really difficult.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I was just gonna agree with you, like Anya's done, like in terms of, obviously when there's certain situations that might call for you to work a bit later than usual, but at least you're making that decision, if that makes sense. It's not being enforced on you because you've established those boundaries. You're the one making that call to say, actually, this demands a bit more of my time, I'm willing to give it. And also, if you work within a flexible team, if that makes sense, there might be times where actually you can take that time back. So even if it's nothing getting back officially, like in terms of it has to be like, you're right, you're taking it in lieu, but actually there might be days where you might do a bit less just because you're already giving that time to, as long as it's the manager. And I think also working within the trust, like a team that's trusting, and like they trust your ability to be professional and get on with you. They take your word for it. I think that goes a long way as well, rather than being a part of a team where they just watch you constantly. And I get that there are things that could have happened that makes people make the decisions that they make. But I think that's one of the things I enjoy as part of my team right now, that they trust you to get on. And what I do in return is, and again, because that's just the way I am, I'm just very open. If I need to take time out from whatever, I would inform someone. So they just trust you. And I think that helps, that goes a long way. But at least you know that when you do have to work that extra, it's also every now and again, if that makes sense. It's not a day-to-day thing.
Yeah. I have a question. Do you feel that looking back on your, like, growing up and stuff, looking at your parents and stuff like that, do you feel like they modeled a good work-life balance to you?
No.
I don't.
Because when I look at my mum worked really hard, and I think she definitely she needed to. She's working in the health sector as well. She worked really hard, and I definitely saw her coming home at like 7, 8 or whatever from work, and work wasn't that far. It was like 20 minutes away, or half an hour away, and she would come back late consistently because she's working to get things done. My dad would come back, I'd say, at more kind of typical times. So he would have more of a regular pattern of the time that he'll return home. I wouldn't say he necessarily worked overtime in that sense, but I think my mum definitely did. So yeah, interesting question. But yeah,
no, I was just thinking about it because I was thinking, I wonder if, like, some of our colleagues who I guess we assume have a good work-life balance, if they had that sort of model. And that's not anything, there's nothing, it's not wrong or right, it's just what you experience, isn't it? And I think, you know, for me as well, my mum worked really hard and a lot, because she had to. I think a lot of people who move to another country and are not from that country, that's another angle as well. They work so hard to just get even, you know, the basics that the people who are from that country have. So I think that even without anybody telling you, you see that everyone's working hard. That's like your norm, and everyone's working more than I guess the typical hours or the stated hours or whatever. So it's not really, I think it sort of normalizes it in a way. So it's not like a big deal for you to work a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say that I do agree with what you've both said. But again, thinking about obviously my family, for example, both of my parents and maternal grandparents, they had their own private practice. So again, that didn't help because, for example, actually thinking about it, my dad tried his hardest to have a good work-life balance, to be fair to him. On my grandparents' side, they built so they had this massive compound where their residential areas above the hospital, and the hospital was downstairs. And I can think of many times where they would have to call my grandmother to wake up in the middle of the night. And my mum's now doing the same thing because she's taking over from both of my grandparents. Now they've passed on. But whereas when I think about my dad, actually, he did try to have a work-life balance as much as possible. Again, because it was his private practice, there were things that demanded his time. But I know that because the hospital wasn't too far away from home, that my dad would stop to actually come home for lunch. So he didn't like us bringing lunch to the hospital for him, because that just meant he hadn't had a chance to leave. But he would make a choice to drive home, have lunch, rest for a little bit, and then go back if he had to. And in terms, like, even just having specific meal times helped. So my dad used to have breakfast at 7, lunch at 2, and then dinner at 7 as well. So he knew that all of those times he was going to come home to see us, to like check on us, see how we're doing, have a little bit of a break. So in comparison to my grandparents, I'll probably say my dad had a bit more of a work-life balance. But actually, when I think about it, what you said, Arabna, the people who've like migrated, if that makes sense, and like obviously they've had to look after their family, but also know many people who still have to look after other people.
Yeah.
That makes sense. They have lots of responsibility, which makes it difficult for them to actually take a break, because they know that if they took that break, well, thinking about it from that point of view, that if they took that break, someone might not be able to go to school. Someone's child might not be able, do you understand? Someone's housing bill or whatever it is might not be paid, which is not fair to them. But I think also that's probably why I can think of a few people that I know, that's partly why they do what they do. And you know that they're working themselves too hard.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is so true, because I think when you're working in a profession which is with people, and you know that what you're doing is impacting on their lives, I think there is a tendency to put that pressure onto us and feel that we have to do that. I think for our own mental well-being, and we do need to have a balance. I think that it is important to have time to switch off, and that helps us to do our jobs more effectively. And I think one of the things which really stood out to me was when my mum said to me one day, she was just like, look, you need to take care of yourself. She said, if you drop down and die, she said it like in patois, but she's like, if you drop down and die, she was like, you know, they will replace you. They'll find someone else.
Literally.
They'll send some flowers for your funeral, and then they'll replace you. They'll put your job up for advertisement and replace you. So I think it's so important to just really have more of a balance and explore what it is that matters to you and make time for it. But I think it would be good for us to just talk about, just to round up really, what things have helped us to have a good life balance. So like I said, what my mum said helped me. Like when you said what your husband said to you helped you. And what Ramna said, seeing colleagues find ways of working smarter has helped you to also adopt ways of working smarter, so that you can get important things done first, and then it allows you to have to be able to switch off a bit more easier at the end of the day. Has anyone got any other tips that they found helpful?
I had something and it's gone.
I'll go whilst you're thinking. I think one thing for me was making plans in the evening. I found it so hard to do anything with friends midweek. I found it so hard because I was exhausted from work. I'd usually still be working, but knowing that, okay, I'm meeting this friend in Liverpool Street at 7:30, told me I need to get out of work by this time in order to get home, get changed, then make it to the station and get there. So that helped me to switch off, having plans. Yeah,
I think that's a really good one and a big one, because actually that's something that I've done as well. Like I say, part of my alarm system, I have an alarm for something at a certain time, so I do need to be out of work and at home or wherever I need to be to do that. So yeah, that's a good tip.
Yeah, definitely.
I think also it's also coming to like allowing yourself to this might not be everybody, but just allowing yourself to accept that you need a break and that you need to do other things outside of work. You need to have things that you can enjoy. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like with, like you said, with these sort of roles where you're working with people and their lives, like you say, you can take it on very, very personally and deeply, which is, you know, in a way, a positive thing, a positive feeling. But you also need to take care of yourself as well, like you said. Otherwise, you won't be able to help those people. And in order to, like you say, to do well in the job and really help them, you need to be able to switch off and do other things and develop yourself in other ways, or just relax. Like, it's okay to relax.
Yeah,
it's fine to relax.
Yeah,
okay.
I do agree. I think sometimes we, I think because probably like mental health and all of those kind of things, they're a bit more, that we can't see the impact of the life that we're living day to day on mental health, for example, that we keep going. And I think one of the things I've learned is that when the body's had enough, it will demand that break, if that makes sense. So it's either you make the choice to give your body a break every now and again, or keep going until you reach breaking point, and then that break that you didn't take, you would have to take it. And you'd have to take it for a really long time. As sad as it sounds, I know of someone, so someone within my family, who's now late, unfortunately, but he worked many, many hours. I'm talking at least 18 hours a day, but literally, I think almost every day, because he did have a lot of responsibility. And I think also, like, there were other things, but I think that played a huge part. For example, like even in weight loss, you don't hear often enough about how stress plays a huge part in weight gain. You hear a lot about healthy lifestyle, eating all the wrong foods. But actually, there are people who probably like grab and go because they're too busy to stop and meal prep and do all of these things. So there are lots of things that can impact on our mental health and well-being that we don't think about, but it's there. Unfortunately, like I said, family member passed on. Sadly, he was in a coma for a really long time. All that money that he worked for, in the end, had to be put towards his care. And you're like,
exactly.
what's the point? And I'm sure before I even lost that job, before I even got to the state of being dead, they'd already found a replacement for him. I've heard stories of people.
Yeah.
I've heard a story. I can't remember. Maybe it was you guys or someone else, of a man who was at work. I think he was at work working till late. He died at work. Literally died at work. And I think by the next day or so, they put out an advert for a replacement.
Oh my goodness.
So not even a time to mourn, nothing like that. So I think when you think about those hardcore facts, so like the thing that your mum said to you, which I think when you hear hard truths like that,
it's true.
Your whole life.
But do you know what? Just following on from that, just very quickly following on from that, I actually collapsed at work once because I wasn't, you know, I was working so much, I was so stressed. It really did affect my health. I collapsed at work. I was in hospital for a period of time. So I really saw the impact that it had on my physical health. And I knew from then I had to make a change. I had to make a change. So you're right. You either make the change now or you keep going until you reach burnout. And it has all kinds of impact. So
yeah. And following that on from that, Anya, I feel like this is where the managers need to have responsibility and need to, because I think sometimes, a lot of times, and for me, I've noticed that a lot of times it is with you know, people from minority groups. Sometimes we can work so hard that people just think, oh, you're really good, like, let's give you more to do, and more, like they just keep on piling on things. Just because someone can do stuff and on the face of it looks like they can take quote unquote pressure, doesn't mean you keep piling it on. You know, I think it's important for them to also actually look at your staff and look at their well-being and make sure that you don't put more on them than you have to. I know that managers have their own pressures or whatever, but I think that that's their role as well, to make sure that they're not putting more work on people than they need to, and make sure that things are divided equally and they're not giving all the terrible, difficult jobs to one person because they fit this strong stereotype or whatever. But they're actually looking and saying, no, like, this person has had a lot. they need a break as well, or for their own work-life balance or whatever, and think about those things as well for their staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I also, just following on from that, I think it's important for us as workers to be able to say no.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And know how to say no, and when to say, no, I can do this, but I can't do that.
Can't do this.
And
Yeah.
stand your ground in it for your own well-being. So that's a big one. I'm sure we'll speak about in a lot more depth in another episode.
Yeah.
I was actually just on the back of what Aradhna was saying earlier. I was thinking about a resilience training I attended some time ago. And I can't remember the details, but I remember the man who was running the training was talking about different shapes. I don't know if you guys have had a similar training. Was talking about different shapes. So there are different types of people, and was talking about these people as shapes. And I can remember it was talking about people who are circles. And they're just the people who just expand because they just take on so much and so much and so much. And they just expand. And that reminded me so much of myself. Whereas there's some people who are like squares. I think I was talking about squares and triangles. I can't remember the details, but the circles stayed with me because it made me think about myself. Actually, just knowing actually when to say no for your own self is really important. So, I mean, there might be information around that sort of thing on Google. I'll see if I can find it and probably share it somewhere with someone, if it's just about shapes and without infringing on copyright or anything like that. Just to kind of like get to know yourself a bit. Because I think by getting to know yourself more, you can then work on things. You can develop yourself intellectually. So I know that I have the tendency to be that type of a person, but I'm going to make the choice to actually set boundaries in place. Sometimes when you don't know yourself, you just think that's normal. You think it's acceptable. Maybe this is how things are done, but not always. Looking to other people. And just on the back of that as well, thinking about something that I started to do to help myself. So I have a really massive list of to-do lists. So everything I need to do is on there. And then from the day to day, I pick out bits, I take out things from there that actually, the way I think about it now is, if I don't do this thing today, can I still go home happy and still function as a wife, as a human being, more importantly, and do everything else? So I started to work in that sort of order of priorities. So I don't carry around this massive to-do list and say, oh, this is everything I need to do. I pick up bits from there. Actually, what's priority for today? What has to go out today? If it doesn't go out today, can it wait till tomorrow? And as more things come, because there'll be other things to come out throughout the day, I'm starting to just reassess, if that makes sense, reevaluate. And I think that's been a really helpful tip for me.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, I think to-do lists are definitely good, and I've used something similar to you, me. I've really just divided the paper into 4 sections, and one being important and urgent things, but that are important and needs to be really done by today. And then there's things which are not urgent, but they are important, so they need to be done. Things which are not important and they're not really urgent. I've got a section for that as well. And then a section for another one, which I can't even think of right now. But that's really helped me just to really prioritize, because I think particularly when you're working in certain professions, there's a lot to do. Everything's important. Everything feels like it's urgent. I find that hard to know, what needs to be done now and what can wait, because I'll get emails in all of the time telling me this needs to be done, that needs to be done, and feeling like they're all urgent. So helping me to kind of divide it into those sections has been really helpful. It's actually a friend of mine who recommended that to me, and ever since I've been using it, and it's helped so much. Just having everything there and knowing, okay, this is what I need to do from this section. If I can get some of these other bits done, great, but it's not highly urgent.
Yeah, I started using a bullet journal, which I'm sure people know about. They can Google, but it's really helped me as well in that same way of like, it's a system of organizing myself and prioritizing stuff for each day, while still keeping it's not in my head anymore, it's on paper. So it's keeping the things that I know I need to, like if there's an urgent report or an urgent whatever assessment, I can sort of plan that in, or have time in the day where I can look at those things. So I think, like that sort of organizing yourself in work so that you can get the urgent things done, and the ones that aren't so urgent, you can do them another day. And also like having time within that work schedule, you know, because I remember like I would give myself quote unquote admin time, and then I would say yes to things, and that would be filled up. And that was part of the issue. Like I'd say yes to things, use the time that I'd given myself to do other bits, admin bits that I thought weren't as important. And then I lost that time and I wouldn't get it back. And then things would pile and pile and pile and pile. So yeah, I think that whole organizing yourself, learning to say no, that sort of being realistic with your time, and also getting support from your managers to help you with that area is really helpful. But I also think one thing that I think Anya does really well is when she's off, she's off, and she just enjoys her time. Like
I'm all for switching off.
Anya switches off. Anya has a good time. Anya has a good weekend. Like she plans stuff and she really enjoys her time. And I think that's something that I've learned from you, Anya, of just like, it's fun. You can organize your life and make sure that you leave work on time or whatever. But then obviously everyone's different personalities and you have different lives. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to do whatever, you know, something that I do or Anya does. But it's just in that spare time, in that free time, making sure that you're doing things or trying to do things that are really helpful for you and that you enjoy. And, you know, like, I don't know, catching up with friends or watching, if you like certain, some certain program, watching that, going out, like whatever is good for you, just making sure that you enjoy that time, because you've only got one life. And you can't have your life just be about work just because that's what is expected of, or that's what you think is expected of you, you know. So
and
it's
also
taken me a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, and I think following on from that, it's thinking about, you know, taking time out and thinking, what do I want my life to be? What is important to me? What do I want my life to look like? What is valuable? And for me, something that's valuable is like making memories, doing things with friends, family, and just enjoying things, enjoying life in that sense. But for other people, it might just be, you know, being able to get into their hobbies a bit more, whether it's their writing that they enjoy doing, or whether they are just really passionate about like housework and things like that. So whether they can use their free time to do things like that. You know, everyone's got their own individual interests. And I think, yeah, just like what you said, I think it's about taking time out to really explore what those things are, and then making time for it. And thinking, what do I want my life to look like?
Definitely. So today we just talked about our work-life balance and how we've developed different ways to manage this. And we hope that you've been able to pick up different tips and tricks to manage your own work-life balance. And we hope that you'll also be able to just think about your work-life balance at the moment and anything that you can do to improve it. If you feel you have a really good work-life balance and you've got some tips for us, please feel free to let us know, because we all need some good advice. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch up with you soon. Bye.